Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So here's a real shocker. Evidently, the former First Lady, and I'm loving saying that former word. Evidently, the former First Lady didn't bother to write her own thank yous to the more than, 90 staff people who took care of the Trumps during their stay in our White House. Evidently, they were written by someone else and typed out and handed around. I guess there's hey, at least there was a thank you given. But I think if I'm not mistaken, this is something that past First Ladies have done themselves. I know. When you're playing that much tennis, you've got little time. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on today's events. The last 4 long years, all 1,461 days of them. I've asked our good friend David Yankovich to come talk with us. David's one of the top digital strategists in the country and a good friend of the show. David, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, Rick, thanks for having me.
So by being a little picky by thinking that maybe you should write your own thank you notes?
Well, I mean, she plagiarized the speech of the RNC when they got nominated, so that doesn't surprise you, does it?
Yeah, well... Yeah, I guess. So let's go back to the beginning. 4 years ago, we had you on the program talking about, then it was about the election, about all the Russian bots and the trolling and all of the attacks that were going on, and predicted that this was not going to be a good 4 years. And I'll ask you the same question I asked Sarah. Has it been as bad as you thought it was going to be? Worse? Where do you put it?
It was as bad, it was worse, but it was also not as bad, if that makes sense. So I didn't. One thing I didn't count on is the resistance, and the resilience of the Democrats out there and everybody to be able to withstand, the corruption and the anger and the violence that we were going to see. I had written an article for Huffington Post called "Midnight in America." And basically, it was the presidency of Donald Trump according to his word. If he got everything that he wanted, if he got everything that he, said in his speeches and things like that, what would happen? And so I wrote this article out, and it was really terrifying. And definitely a lot of hyperbole in it. But in the end of it, there was the resistance. It was groups coming out and standing up. It was. It's women. I mean, the first thing was, the Million Women March and, everything else at this time 4 years ago. And, and the kids in Parkland. And, there are so many groups that just, came out and had just had enough and, and pushed back. And so it wasn't as bad as it could have been or it should have been because of that. Because there was just such blistering offensive. You have Scott Dworkin who literally sued Donald Trump for everything, like stamps and envelopes and, all that stuff. I mean, we didn't let them have an inch on it. I think that it's definitely a lot worse, though, than we thought it was going to be, too. And seeing it in real time and looking back at it, it's terrifying how close the country did come to losing democracy. We came basically one bloody rebellion away from losing everything. He tried to do an attempted coup 2 weeks ago. I think that what we have right now is a really strong resilience. So I'm really happy with everybody and how hard we fought on everything. But we still have the same fights ahead of us. 4 years ago, we were talking about Russian bots. I'm still fighting Russian bots with candidates. And kind of going through it. Plus now we have Iranians and the Chinese and stuff. There's a lot of geopolitical places and things like that we're nowhere near close to being in a good spot. So, it's kind of one of those days where watching everything happen, you're just like so many memories of things that you just forget about too, or you get mad about. But I think that I think we came really freaking close, and I think that we got really lucky that there are so many patriots in this country who stood up and said no, especially the women, especially the kids.
No, that was remarkable and something that we didn't predict 4 years ago. But were you like many of us who were this morning, woke up and watching the helicopters, just the still image of the helicopter in the yard there at the White House, waiting for Trump to get on it to go away? Because I was glued to it, going, okay, come on, let's go, time to go, get on the chopper so we can put you on the plane and ship you back down to Florida. Were you among the crowd watching that?
I was among the crowd who woke up like at 4 o'clock in the morning, was on Twitter, and they couldn't go back to sleep because it was like when you're a little kid and it's Christmas. So, I mean, for me, it was like, yeah, I couldn't. Once I woke up, I'm like, wow. And like tonight, we get to go to bed. Everybody out there, all of us, we get to go to bed with sanity in the White House again. Like, for the first time in 4 years, like, we don't know what kind of horrible things the Republicans are cooking up inside the White House and using the government to, hurt people. And that was one thing that, like, this year I started kind of really feeling despondent about was, for the first time, and I know that, like, this is something that, the black community has gone through forever and so many other people have, but I've never, as a white guy, been afraid of my government before, and thought of my government as the enemy. And I did. I thought of my government as the enemy going into this year a lot of the time, in the sense that, like, you can't trust what they're saying to you. You can't trust the information that they're putting out. You can't trust if the COVID vaccine is going to kill you or not. You can't trust anything. You can't trust that they have your better life and family, in their best interest. You can't trust any of it. And I started feeling very resentful towards that this year. And that was the first time ever that, I felt that way about my own government. I mean, I have the Statue of Liberty and tattooed on my back. I have the American flag tattooed on my arm. And, like, having that feeling of like, wow, like my government has completely just left me behind, just is not working in my best interest or anyone's best interest. And I can't even listen, like, if like the COVID vaccine's coming out, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to trust the COVID vaccine that Trump is endorsing because he's telling everybody to ingest bleach. That's something I think that really kind of rocked me this year too. That's the first time that, like, the government has ever, I think, been out to get people. At least in my lifetime, like that I've seen. Like where it was enemies listed. The Democrats are like, we were close. We have no idea even how close. It's going to be 25, 30 years before we hear just how bad these plans were and how terrible things were.
No, you're right. And it's gonna take, obviously numerous hearings over the next couple of years to find out exactly what happened. Because I always go back to, just think about what we do know, and then imagine how much we don't know that's been covered up. Because we've been focused on this pandemic. We've been focused on the infighting. We've been focused on the giant S storm that was his Twitter account, and all of the things that were happening behind closed doors. We still don't know how bad it's going to be and how much cleaning up we're going to have to do and how difficult it's going to be for the Biden administration to fix up what was broken.
And the, administrations even beyond them. I remember during John F. Kennedy, there was this, CIA operation called Operation Northwood that they proposed, which was to make false flag attacks in the United States, like they're coming from Cuba. And it got to the desk of John F. Kennedy, and he fired the Joint Chief over it. And did that. And that's always been like one of those themes on American history you always hear about. And like, we literally had a president who incited an insurrection on the Capitol. And I mean, I don't even know how many operations and things like this that were greenlit. We never had corruption like this before. Nixon was nothing compared to Trump was. And the more that we hear that he did, the more selling out, the more probably treason, that has been committed with giving foreign leaders and other nations intelligence from our country. We already know he sold our country out. I think over the next, like you said, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, it's just going to continue to go, and it's going to take generations to be able to, I guess, repair a lot of this here, of what he's done. But it started today.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this, because, obviously there's the other side of this. And we're, as someone pointed out to me today, we're a 51-49 country. We seem to be fairly split down the middle. And you've got, people who believe just the opposite of what we're talking about. Is there a way to engage them that you think? Is there a way to, once again, maybe have some set of facts that are universal instead of each side claiming that they have, license to what they're saying are the facts. Do you see any hope of that changing? Do you see anything the administration can do to unite the country, as he talked about today during the speech?
Oh, sure. I mean, we've seen this before. We always come back from this. You know, we had the Civil War. We had insurrectionists and people who were committing treason openly in the Senate and the House, and they were expelled. And, you know, I mean, we had a full-on war where, you know, it was 1 in 3 people in this country came back dead. You know, and, you know, 40 years after that, 30 years after that, we were, you know, coming back together again and coming back together again. This happens. I mean, in countries, we were tested. You know, we didn't go to war with each other yet, you know, and we aren't going to go to war with each other. You know, the other side of who was saying that this isn't about Democrat and Republican. This is about extremists. I mean, you find me like out of the Democrat or out of the Republican Party, I would say 3 out of 10 people or 4 out of 10 people who think that going to war is a good idea. And really, I mean, because like the thing is like the extremists that are out there and the people who are wanting to do violence, these are the Proud Boys, these are the KKK, these are the same people who have existed throughout all time. The Republicans went and courted their votes, they ended up bringing them out, did all that. But this isn't the first time that we've experienced this in our country's history. Yeah,
no, you're correct.
Bring this back.
The difference was, though, is we didn't have this powerful social media tool for all of these folks to find each other and to do all of this organizing in public. Because I have a Parler account. I was reading the statements from some of the most vile stuff you're going to read. About overthrowing our government, and they're taking their guns to D.C. and if someone tries to take it, they're stacking up bodies, and just all of this stuff that was done right out in public. And I know someone's going to say, "Well, it's not the fault of the social media; it's not their fault." Where do you place the blame?
Oh, it's on social media's fault, 100%. You can't. It's social media, and it's a failure of the Democrats. It's a failure of law enforcement. It's a failure on the Republican side. But I think a huge piece of this has to do with social media. And we saw it in the last week, just in the last week of Donald Trump's presidency. He got banned off of all social media, and look how calm everything was. Look at the humongous insurrection that we had at the Capitol today. We just in 1 week just removing this stuff. Social media is going to have to be forced by the United States government to, police their people when they go in with the government. That's a big piece of this, because this is where the radicalization of the right wing and terrorists and everything else are happening is on social media, and it's openly happening through these platforms. And they're not using, they're not transparent about what they're doing. They're not controlling anything. They're just making money hand over fist on hate. It's a time for the government now to go after Mark Zuckerberg and go after Jack from Twitter and everybody, the owners of these things, and really force them to start playing by the rules that everybody else has to live by. And if someone commits a mass murder off of your platform by radicalizing using your tools, it's probably going to have to, be written into some type of law somewhere that you can be sued for this. We have to make them play by the same set of rules that everybody else plays by. You're not a mass media organization getting free speech out there. This is hate speech, and that is not protected.
Right.
Insurrection of violence is not protected. All of these things, and that's going to be coming down on the social media companies.
But what do you say? Yeah, and I get that, but what do you say to the people who go, well, then fine, they'll just go offshore where you can't touch them, like Parler went to Russia. Are you gonna block them from overseas? Because I foresee that kind of thing happening, having these social media companies for these underground fringe groups being in places like Russia who want to sow the seeds of division, as they've done masterfully over the last several years. I see that growing.
Yeah, but that's not going to be your grandma and grandpa and your mom and dad jumping on
Excellent
Facebook
point.
and seeing that the president's going to be getting arrested. These are going to be radicalized fringe people that we can then chase down and clean up through law enforcement.
Yeah, excellent point. I do want to get your thoughts on the speech today, real quick, and then what are you looking for going forward? That's going to give you some signs of if we're going in the right direction.
Well, I mean, it's seeing if first off, I thought the speech was terrific. I think coming together, unity, being all the themes that Biden has been his entire life, and including coming back from loss and everything. He's just the perfect person for the moment right now. The signs of moving forward is going to be what we saw today. Republican leadership going to that church with them and worshiping in services. These kinds of signs of bipartisanship that we're going to see. We're going to have a lot of fights and flee. These people are not anybody that we can really trust on any level. But and getting the normalcy back into government, that's going to be a really big piece of this. Like, it's okay if government gets boring for a little bit. It's we want this to be back to normal. It's
not just okay, it's encouraged.
Yeah, it's encouraged. Government's not supposed to be super exciting. It's not supposed to be infotainment. This isn't the WWE. This is real life. We've seen it. We have 400,000 dead Americans because we let an infotainer reality star become president, and he tried to take us to the brink of destruction. So seeing these things kind of get back into place where normalcy's there, that's what I'm looking for. And I'm looking for working together. One of the big things is H.R. 1, getting that passed. If H.R. 1 passes through in the Senate, that's going to change a lot of things, which is now it's going to be Senate or S.R. 1, which is the Anti-Corruption Act. It's a really big deal. It's the most powerful anti-corruption legislation in the history of our government. If we can get that passed, that's going to be a really good first step.
Yeah, I'm with
you. And just kind of beating the evil back that we've seen. But social media is going to have to take a stand on this stuff, and they're not going to. So that's one of the battles you're going to see from Biden and his team. I'm sure coming up is going to be if they're not going to be stopping this extremism and things like this on their platforms and hate speech and everything, then I'm sure that there's going to have to be some government that comes in on that.
Real quick, the impeachment. Obviously impeached for the second time. Do you foresee the Senate convicting him?
Oh yeah, I think that he's gone. The thing is nobody wants him. Like you saw today, he left the White House and it was 15 people. Normally there's a send off of hundreds of people from the White House or at the Capitol building. Nobody wants him here. Nobody wants to think about him, and he's a plague to the Republican Party. Because the Democrats, we're going to get to them and put their name on it to impeach and remove Donald Trump. And you can either be on the wrong side of this and we'll run every single ad and chase you till the rest of the time about the things that he's done, or you can move on and remove him and don't ever let him hold office again.
Yeah.
Plus, we need to get him done with having any kind of national security briefing. So, yeah, I think the Trump days are numbered. I think McConnell, like I said on the show a long time ago, actually probably on this anniversary show, that eventually it's going to be the Republicans that stop them. It won't be the Democrats.
There you go. And I'm right there with you. And I've said the exact same thing. David, I appreciate the time. Always great talking with you. Look forward to having you back as the new era continues. Thanks so much.
It begins now. Thanks, guys.
Our good friend David Yankovich. Let's take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
The ransack